So in opposition to desire, we need conflict, right? And so we'll come back to this as we go through a little bit more, but the quick answer right now is finding a desire with a strong conflict inside of each episode. That is how we can build a strong story structure inside of each one. That desire doesn't have to be as massive, but we want it to be strong. It doesn't have to be magic, it can be a haircut if there's conflict. So you have an example of somebody who didn't have all that much conflict in their life.
Oh, goodness. I have a family friend who comes from an extremely wealthy family. They have this huge family business. And he went to his dad and he's like, I want to go to Oxford. Like, I think I should go to Oxford and study there and I could bring it back for the business. And his dad was like, okay. And so his dad gave $250,000 to Oxford University. And his son went there and finished the degree. Isn't that ridiculous? But then, like, listen to that story and compare it to the same guy, and let's tweak it a bit. Let's say he goes to his dad and he's like, Dad, like, I would dream of going to Oxford. And his dad's like, well, son, if you do that, who's going to help me with the family business? Like, we need the family business to run so that we can pay for your mother's medical bills. It's just not going to work. I don't know how we're going to do it. And then we go on with his journey to getting to Oxford. Like, which one do you immediately connect with, right? It's the guy who had the dad saying, no, the conflict. Well, how is he going to do it? And that's what raises the question in your mind, right? The guy who just got into Oxford because his dad actually gave them all this money. It's like, well, he got it too easy. Like, his desire was there. He really wanted to go, but then he achieved it straight away. Can you feel the difference inside of that?
Can you imagine the Zelwyn story if we open up and he's doing the card trick and, oh my God, it was amazing. They, you could make the cards appear wherever I wanted. So I became a magician.
Woohoo!
Right? Like, he still has desire. The desire's there. But without conflict, we don't have any kind of journey. We don't actually have the character working for it. And conflict gives you the opportunity to show the desire. Right? Every time that Zelwyn ran into a problem, his desire is what pushed him through. So it gives us the opportunity for that journey. The biggest thing conflict does is it creates engagement, right? So it actually keeps us watching. You're scrolling through Facebook. Whether or not you watch or stay with the video, a lot of it is related to conflict. Is there a challenge? Is there something that needs to be overcome? Right now, we're sitting in a workshop talking about elements and moving stories and all of this kind of stuff. If the fire alarm goes off in the room over there, what happens to all of you? Well, you hear a fire alarm, you actually are gonna get up and run?
I don't like running, but
if you actually hear the fire alarm, I bet a lot of you are probably gonna look over there. You're gonna kind of wonder. You might start chatting to your neighbor going, should we check this out? Somebody might go look at it. Are you paying attention to us? Do you care what we're saying? As soon as there's conflict, your attention goes to it, right? It's how we're designed. So conflict, we realize that is a big part of creating engagement, getting people to pay attention. The second big thing, though, beyond just engagement, is that conflict creates a question. And that is the magic of a strong story structure. It has a question that you want answered. Think of any of the popular drama and crime and all of those kind of television shows. House, somebody gets sick at the beginning. That's a conflict. What's the question? What does he have? Are you going to cure him? Law and Order, somebody gets raped, abused, murdered at the beginning. Question, who did it? Right? So do we see that connection? A lot of those shows, within 5 minutes, we have a conflict. We spend 42 minutes going on a journey to solve it. And then in the last 2, we get the answer. Conflict leads to a question, which creates the engagement. If you're halfway through that story, what do you want to know? Who did it? That's what's keeping you in your seat, with desire. Right? So the desire is what they want, but then the conflict is getting in the way. Question?
What about the case of puppy monkey baby? Is that a conflict?
It's a conflict, and then it's just wrong.
So the question was puppy monkey baby. What about in the question of puppy monkey baby? That's crazy.
So a couple things. One, so there's a puppy monkey baby commercial that was played for the Super Bowl last year. And so it didn't have a lot of conflict, didn't have a lot of desire. So the first thing I would say is, one, it actually was a large flop. If you actually look at the emotional ratings and the response and what it actually did for the business, it was actually at the lower end versus the Budweiser puppy stories, right? Where like you got this little dog that gets lost and needs to make it home, desire, conflict. Those are the ones that actually rated the highest in the New York Times, you know, that kind of thing. And we also, there's a lab that does testing on how effective the commercials are. Massive difference. Now, why did people talk about it is uniqueness. It's novel, it's different, right? So it's just so bizarre that we talk about it. That doesn't make it a good story, though, right? We are talking about crafting a story that actually says something and takes people on a journey. So that you can sensationalize, you can create this big, different, novel stuff. What we want to try and do is capture the puppy monkey baby in our character. What is that stuff that's really different about them, right? But not go to the part where we're putting three things together.
And it's creepy, and the song gets stuck in your head. Yeah. And so with that, just to recap, conflict is the challenge or obstacle that the character must overcome to obtain their desire. That's the reason why they're pushing through all these hurdles, right? And so we have a film to watch now. And
well, let's apply this for a second, then let's play the film. So what could we think of as a conflict for the mortgage broker?
Their father wanted them to be something else, a lawyer.
Okay, so there wasn't enough respect for them as, you know, there wasn't enough respect for the field of mortgage brokers. And so she was on a quest to show how powerful it could transform lives if they got the right house. Okay, what else?
Housing prices for the first-time home buyer.
Housing crisis and financial troubles and how hard it is to get a house, and, you know, how it's the struggle to help make it work for people so that they can still do that and have that home and move in.
do you have any friends that have any suggestions to?
There's a question here, but I'm holding on to it as far as finding conflict. But
Yeah, if anyone online has any conflicts, potential conflicts, I've got one.
Yeah.
What about a mortgage broker in Houston right now? Who's going to be buying a house there? That's a huge conflict.
Mm-hmm. So you're looking for what can get in the way. And that is how we're going to start looking at the desire and the conflict together. Desire connects us, makes us feel via empathy. Conflict creates engagement in the question. Those two elements together create a story, right? Zelwyn comes in, he loves magic, he wants to be a magician, but I'm in Malaysia, nobody believes in it. People should say I should stay in school. There's no way I can do this, right? That together creates the question of, can he become a magician? Can he persist? That's what we're looking for, those two things. Question online before we dive in?
what if you have a main character that has a big desire, but the conflict isn't anywhere near as strong? You can't manufacture conflict, so what do you do?
Have you watched reality TV? You certainly can manufacture conflict. But if you think that that's unethical and wrong, look for other conflicts and look to how to maximize the conflict. You know, again, as a storyteller, your story comes down to the strength of your desire and the strength of your conflict. So we can take a character at 75% and a conflict at 20%, but that is what our story's left at. You can put all of the fancy tools on it and color grading and music and whatever the heck you want, but if you do not have desire and conflict, you are not going to get people to feel it and stay engaged. So it's about how to make the most of. So maybe go deeper, and whatever it is, how do we most, in an authentic way, not to sensationalize or make something it's not, but how do we really live in that? With the example of Zelwyn, and you know, maybe his only conflict was that the meeting and the magic and everything else, is getting really specific and going into those moments. So when you have a conflict that might be smaller, is really getting people to bring you into how it felt, where you were. You notice how we got him to talk about like driving home and the window was down and I was crying, right? Like we're living in the conflict. Not like that could have come across as, yeah, I got kicked out of the magic club. That's probably the first thing he said. Oh, really? Okay, now bring us right into it. Live in the conflict. So that's part of how we can amplify it as well. Okay, so we're going to show you another episode of The Remarkable Ones. And this one is featuring an amazing woman from Vietnam who grew up, they think it's exposure to Agent Orange, but they're not necessarily sure. But basically, her and her brother were about 50 pounds at the age of 30, just super, super frail bodies. So you're going to hear about her desire and what's getting in the way of her achieving it.
You know, I'm really scared and I hate three things. The first is a big mirror. The second is a camera. This camera too. Three things I really hate and scared. Because I can see me in that. some people, they don't believe that the people with disability can do anything. I met a lot of people with disability in my village, and almost of them try to suicide, and a lot of people successful because no one to raise voice, to fighting. And I said, I think that I should to do that. Nobody have a right to decide other people's life. Before, my dream is to be a model, but when I share my dream with friends and other people, they say, no, terrible dream. How you can dream like this when you have a body with this? A lot of people say I have a stupid dream. Why? Why you just think dream? They just think everything. I cannot accept the people like this. What I dream is my rights.
So I'd like to welcome you all today to this press conference here in the new home of the United Nations in Vietnam. And we're here for a press conference to talk about a very special event that's happening this Saturday morning. It's a fashion show. Here, I Am Beautiful, You Too.
I remember the first time when I decided to go to Hanoi to live, and I go to the bus stop, and the bus driver said that we don't transfer the wood, like a box or something. They said to me like this, and I said, I'm not a box or a thing or a wood, I'm a person. He not accept me go to the bus. So I choose the fashion show to say with everybody that we can see the beauty everywhere and from everyone.
I'm sure many of you must be thinking, what is UN doing in a fashion show? I think fashion is a really good way of challenging our stereotypes and the way we look at beauty.
In Vietnam we have 6.7 million people with disability. I believe that if I do that, it's not for my life only, it's good for many people around me. The first time, I think not a lot of people with disability have the same dream with me to be a model. Just 2 days only, we got 122 applications from women with disability. So I feel, wow, not only me want to be a model.
And now, let's welcome the show. I'm beautiful, you too.
Xin cảm ơn tất cả quý vị và các bạn và bây giờ
Change of social behavior is a very long time, but more important now we can do is empower people with disability. It means you work out and appear before a lot of people to say that I'm beautiful. It's really important moment. I believe that when they really have a strong insight, they can do everything. They can do everything. I think most important is believe in yourself. I believe in myself.
As you see like the fashion show come together and people come down the aisle, like do you feel it for her? Like what she's trying to create and what she's doing? Like I feel it every time I watch this. I've seen it so many times, just like, go girl, like you want to scream for her and cheer. Do you feel that conflict? Do you feel how that conflict creates that engagement and you want to see what she's going to do and if she can achieve it? Do we get that? Can we see the opposition of those two elements? And this is a piece, we chose to show this one because like the conflict is really strong, right? And the strength of that conflict is what can keep us so engaged in what's going on. That make sense? Yeah.
James online said he's crying.
Oh, James, yeah. She rocked it.
It was a hard story to make. Being with Van, we went out for street beer in Thailand, and I actually had a server come up to me and say, "Why did you bring her here? Like, just because she's disabled? Like, why would you do that?" They believe that you were bad in a past life if you're disabled. So it's like the universe kind of paying you back. So just terrible, terrible misconceptions over what disabilities mean and everything else. So she's fighting this massive conflict, but such a beautiful woman.